Tuesday. What's Tin-Yetti cooking today?
G'day Yakfishers, it's Chew on That Tuesday. So today I am doing snapper risotto. You may have seen I caught a large snapper. To me, risotto is very much about feel. So the amount of stock, the amount of all your liquids and stuff will vary depending on your rice and your fish and exactly how much of everything you use. The basic ratio for risotto is generally said to be 4 to 1, so 4 cups of liquid to 1 cup of rice. So I base it around that, but I never measure anything. But then I realised that I never measure anything on these videos anyway, so what does it matter? I might as well just go ahead and do it. Very important, boiling stock. Stock has to be boiling from the start. Good whack of olive oil. Nice big bit of butter. So the key importance of having all of that in there to start with is to get your onions really nicely cooked without putting too much colour on them, because that colour will then come out into your risotto. So if you want to have a nice crisp, white, clean fish risotto, you've got to get that onion cooked without putting too much colour on it and having all that extra oil and butter in there, apart from the fact that butter is delicious, will help you with that. So, onion. I also like to get my cracked pepper in there at this stage. That way the flavour of it goes right through everything as it cooks. Confession, that is a powdered stock, but I like to give it a bit of a help along, so a couple of fresh bay leaves in my stock. So you find once they're ready, you just start to get this little bit of residue happening on the bottom of the pan. I'm not sure if that's the onion or the butter, but it just starts to catch just a little bit. So, next. Rice. I'll probably make enough for 3 meals or 4 meals. Just going by how much fish I have to balance the rice, I reckon I'll go nearly 2 cups. Cup and 3/4. So going by the rules I said earlier, that means I'm going to need about 1.5 litres stock. That's a 1.9 saucepan, so there's probably about 1.5 litres stock there. So what I'm doing now is I'm frying in the rice. So the rice now picks up a lot of that flavour already out of the butter, and you can see it's very dry. It's already absorbed most of the liquid. And again, you wait until it starts to stick. This is what I call the Johnny Cash technique of cooking. Walk the line. Lots and lots of times in cooking, it's about walking the line. The line between sticking and putting flavour on. Now, if you're using garlic cloves, chopped garlic, you put that in there with your onions. I didn't pay much attention and I bought this garlic paste, so that burns if you put it in there too early, so I'll just put it in now. And then always with risotto, hot and hot. So you want to keep both your saucepan with your rice in it and your stock on high. Now I've put nearly half my stock in that first go. And I'll just stand here and I'll keep stirring. And I don't leave my risotto alone. Alright, so we've nearly absorbed all of that first lot. Give it a stir, stir. The grains are just starting to stick. Drop in some more. I reckon I'm going to need more stock than what I've got, so water. So then by the time I'm ready for that next addition of stock, it'll be back up to the boil. So it's been about 6 minutes since the first addition of stock to that. Second addition's nearly absorbed. And lob in my corn and my thyme. You don't want to put the beans in too early because they'll discolour, but the corn can handle it. As you can see, that lot of liquid is just about absorbed. But the corn will buy us a few seconds because that cools it down, as well as adding some more liquid. Alright, So more liquid in there. I just grabbed a couple of grains out there and I reckon it's probably about halfway cooked. So it's going to need a decent amount more liquid still. So the trick that catches a lot of people out, and it's pretty close to having caught me out this time, but I'll be alright, is that as you get towards the end stages, it takes less liquid. As I said, just before that last edition I tasted it and it was about halfway cooked, and I said I think it's going to need a decent amount more liquid. Well, I reckon I might be there. Just checking a couple of grains, they've still got a little bit of crunch to them, so they're pretty close, but there's a reasonable amount of liquid still in there. So if you were using a homemade stock, you would need to add salt to that, but because I'm using a stock powder, they have a decent amount of salt in them, so I'm not actually going to add any additional salt at all to this. So it's nearly absorbed that liquid, so we're going to chuck in our greens, beans, zucchini. I just like adding zucchini because the kids will eat it. And I'm also going to chuck in some frozen peas. I reckon that's now exactly, of course. Right, last little bit of liquid, bay leaves are still in there. As you can hear, it's starting to stick again, walking that line. And finally, I'm going to add, it looks like a lot of cheese, but it's not actually. It's just because it's grated. It's maybe 100 grams, that much off a block. Cheese, stir that through. Now that really just adds creaminess. I'm looking more for the creaminess than for the flavour. You can add parmesan if you like. And finally, our fish. It's just cut into nice thin little bits. There's probably 300 grams there. And the reason I'm putting that in absolutely last is because I don't want to stir it. Because when you stir it, you break it up as it cooks. Obviously, we know that fish gets brittle or gets soft and then it will come apart if we overcook it and stir it. So I'm going to stir it in until it's mixed. And I'm also going to stir in, this is probably 1 lemon's worth of lemon juice. That was more than I thought it was, but that's alright. Into there, just for a final kick. The only problem with lemon juice is that it, the acidity will discolour your greens. So if you're going to do that, you really want to do it at the very last second, just before you're going to serve. And that fish is pretty close to ready. I'll give it another maybe 30 seconds, turn it back up to make sure that heat stays there, because you lose that heat when you put the cold fish in. So now I can see my fish is starting to break up, so I'm just going to leave it alone. And I'm going to turn that off and just let it sit for 1 or 2 minutes. Again, walk the line, because if you let it sit too long, the rice absorbs too much liquid and it goes gluggy. You don't let it sit long enough, your fish is undercooked. Depending on your guests, they might not care. I wouldn't care, I'd quite happily eat that right now. So yeah, next up, we'll put it on a plate. Alright, Daddy Duties took a little bit more than the 2 minutes I said, so it's kind of a little bit stodgy, but because I saved it early, it should be nice. A couple of spoonfuls. If you really wanted to make it look fancy, you could reserve a piece or two of the fish and then serve that up grilled on the top. Or even have a few nice green beans to put on the top or something like that. But for me, at home, it's just all in the taste. So there you have it, snapper risotto. Get into it. Enjoy.
See you next Tuesday or on the water.